Hey, what's going on today, YouTube? Today's video is going to be discussing why I deleted a couple of 100 Anki cards the other day and what my new strategy for moving with Anki is forward on in the future. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the video. Okay, so first of all, what made me change my strategy for Anki? Well, the other day I was doing a little bit of research online and I came across this article called Incidental Vocabulary Acquisition from an Authentic Novel, Do Things Fall Apart? And the name of the novel was Do Things Fall Apart. So what this study did was take a group of people, they were native Spanish speakers but had an advanced level English, and they were tested to see how many words they could acquire just from reading this authentic novel, Do Things Fall Apart. And so the way they tested this was by searching up the words in the novel that they wouldn't have known, as these words were from Africa. And so, of course, these speakers of Spanish and English wouldn't have known what these words are. So that's what the study claims. And these words were sorted based on the frequency. So depending on how many times they appeared in the novel, they were grouped and categorized. So depending on the category, they were tested for how well they acquired, quote unquote, these words. And I guess when I reference acquired, I'm referring to meaning recognition and word recognition. And I'm not going to dive too much into the really nitty gritty details of the article, as you can go down below in the description and read it below, as I'll link it. It's a free article that you can read. But I'll go ahead and show the table that kind of shows the results of the study. So if you take a look at the table that I am now showing on the screen, the left column is the frequency of occurrence for these African words, and they're based on frequency. So they appear once, they appear 2 to 4 times, they appear 5 to 8, 10 to 17, 28 plus. So the big column that I was focusing on was the meaning recall and the meaning recognition. And so the results that were striking was they said that the words began to become, quote unquote, acquired, meaning the meaning recall and the meaning recognition increased at around 10 to 17 and above. So starting at around 10 repetitions for a word, the ability to recall the meaning of it and recognize the word increased dramatically. So if you compare that to 2 to 4 times, 1 times, and even 5 to 8 times, there is a pretty big difference in these categories. So what does that mean for my studies based on what I found in this research article? Well, I think what it got me thinking about was how can I apply this to my studies? And so I did a little bit more researching online just to verify this quote unquote figure of repetition. And I found online that somewhere between 8 to 10 repetitions of a word, meaning that frequencies, meaning how many times you're exposed to that word, how many times do you see it, 8 to 10 times is the optimal exposure rate to be able to remember a word or to be able to recall the meaning of that word. And I think that fits very well in line with how I am studying Anki. And so by going through all these different articles and finding that number about 8 to 10, I decided to change up my Anki to where I see the cards that I make much more frequently. So this is why I deleted about a couple of 100 older cards that I had made in January and February, because I want to be seeing the new cards that I just make now. And so at the current moment, I'm not making any more from once I make. So say I'm studying an anime, or I'm studying like a book or whatever content that I'm studying, I'm only going to be making about 10 to 20 new cards for that content, because I want to be able to review those new cards as soon as possible. This is so I can get it into my repetition count for the month, and so that I can begin to see this word and hear this word more often than not in the material that I'm studying. So that is what I am currently doing. So I want to be able to see these cards more often. So I delete all those old ones, and I'm just going to continue running through this, and I'm going to try to see whether or not that makes my Anki studies a little bit more efficient, a little bit better. Because recently I've been seeing my Ankis either, number 1, taking too much time, number 2, the recognition or the retention of the cards have been slacking a little bit in my Anki deck. I've hit about 80% for mature cards on my Substance SRS Anki deck, and that is okay, but I want to try to get that up more and more. So I think by seeing these words much more often, it's going to increase my ability to be able to recognize these words in the media that I'm consuming. Okay, so I'm editing this video right now, and I think I missed one important thing as well to mention about the studies. So the retention rate, the recall rate, was about 80% for the studies, but that is only from implicit reading. So by incorporating a little bit of explicit studying, a little bit of intentional Anki study, this might increase that rate, as these studies only accounted for implicit reading. So back to the video. And of course there are a couple of things to note. Certain words are a little bit harder to remember, so there are a lot of factors that play into account which words you do acquire from just reading and just being exposed to, and some require much more and some require less. But this 8 to 10 is kind of just like that average, that mean value for these repetitions. So it all depends on kind of what words that I'm coming across, but I think the more important ones are going to be the ones that I think that I've seen 1 to 2 times before I make a card of it. And just getting those words in my Anki, I think it's going to make a whole world of difference once I get into doing the stuff for Anki. And I think this is a very important thing for words that you don't really see that often. So words that are found in a frequency of above 5,000 up. So these are words that you don't really see too much more in conversation, a little bit more specialized, maybe 7,000 and up. These words don't actually pop up too much in like novels and whatnot. Maybe you'll come across it like 2 to 3 times. This is where I think Anki plays a key role in being able to recognize these words and being able to be exposed enough to these words. And so by putting these in Anki, by not stacking my Anki too full of stuff that's not really relevant to what I am reading or studying, I think this will play, this might make my studies a little bit better. But who knows? At the current moment, I'm kind of just testing things out and seeing how the strategy goes, and we'll see how that goes for the future. So I'll be doing a little bit more of documentation, maybe whether or not it's been more helpful, how my retention rate has been, and yeah. But that's kind of all I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to just make a follow-up video for the one that I had made previously, so I can kind of explain my Anki moving forward. And yeah, that's today's video. Hopefully you found something useful out of this video. I'm gonna link all the other research things that I found below in the description as well. I'm not gonna link all of the resources that were referenced in those research articles. I did go through some of those references that were researched, so if you're interested, just go ahead and go down to the references table and go search those ones up. But anyways, that's it for today's video. I will see you again in a future one, and yeah, good luck in your studies out there, and I'll see you later.